Season 3 of Star Trek The Next Generation is generally hailed as the turning point of the series. With more focus on character growth and development, the show really came into its own, creating such amazing and influential episodes such as today's video topic, Yesterday's Enterprise. Hello and welcome to Backtrek, a web series that focuses on the background information on any given topic in Star Trek. In this episode, we're taking a look at the Star Trek The Next Generation episode Yesterday's Enterprise, to better understand its place in Star Trek history. The story for Yesterday's Enterprise really starts, at least for Star Trek, in April of 1989. You see, in order to help the show out with its severe lack of scripts and script ideas, Michael Piller had opened the floodgates, so to speak, to allow open submissions for the series. This meant that, generally speaking, anyone, professional or otherwise, could submit their script ideas for writers of the show to consider making an episode from. And on April 15th, 1989, Trent Christopher Ganino did just that. Trent's original idea had the appearance of an Enterprise from the past, and Jean-Luc Picard having to face the dilemma of whether to return the ship and its crew back to their own time. In this version, when the ship arrived in the future, it didn't cause any changes to the timeline, and the drama came from Picard being forced to decide whether or not to reveal the crew's fate before sending them back. At this point, the captain of the past Enterprise was named Richard Garrett. At the same time, Eric Stillwell was developing a story that would allow Tasha Yar to return to the series after her death in Season 1. In this pitch, drawing from a bunch of Star Trek The Original Series episodes, a Vulcan science team would inadvertently cause the death of Surak, the founder of the Vulcan philosophy, when a trip through the Guardian of Forever into Vulcan's ancient past goes horribly wrong. As a result, the Vulcan people would never become a race devoted to logic. Instead, they would become more like the Romulan Star Empire, and would be engaged in a war against the powers of the galaxy, including the remnants of the Federation. As part of this alteration, Tasha Yar would still be alive and part of the Enterprise D crew, not having died in the series' first season. Ultimately, Ambassador Sarek, who was on board the Enterprise to greet the returning science team, would end up sacrificing himself by returning to the past and taking the place of Surak, thus restoring the correct timeline. When Stillwell pitched this idea to Michael Piller, Piller was impressed, but still felt the story just wasn't quite there yet, and so suggested that Eric combine his story with Ganino's Yesterday's Enterprise story to see what they could come up with. And so, combining their ideas, the Vulcans were replaced by Klingons, and the Sarek-Surak plotline replaced with the idea that Yar would fill the absence on board the Enterprise C after the death of the now female Captain Rachel Garrett. Their finished script was largely as broadcast, with the exception of Guinan's presence in the episode. Piller really wanted Guinan to be there, and also flesh out her character a little more. So important was Guinan being in the episode that Piller had to push the filming for this episode up from January of 1990 to December 11th of 1989, as Whoopi Goldberg would not be available for filming in January. This meant that 4 members of the writing staff, Ira Stephen Bear, Ronald D. Moore, Hans Beimler, and Richard Manning, divided the episode amongst themselves in order to get it completed on time. And as such, they were forced to work over the Thanksgiving weekend, something that none of them were happy about. But these same writers were very ecstatic about getting the chance to tell a far more darker tale than was usually seen in a Star Trek series. Ron Moore had this to say about the episode. "We brought back Denise Crosby to kill off Tasha Yar a second time. It was a great opportunity to send the character off in a big heroic sacrifice, because no one was really happy with the way she left the series in the first season. Nobody on the show really liked it, and certainly the fans didn't like it. I'm not even sure she really liked it. So Yesterday's Enterprise was a chance to kill her right." Actually, as originally written, the climactic battle at the end of the episode would have been far more gruesome and far more dark. We would have seen the decapitation of Wesley Crusher and the electrocution of Commander Data, for example. But due to budgetary and time constraints, these deaths were ultimately removed. A little bit of Trek trivia for you all here is that during that climactic battle, the original intent was to have Worf demanding the Enterprise's surrender. However, again, because of time and budget, this was changed to an unknown Klingon voice. David Carson would direct this outing into the Trek universe. He would go on to direct several episodes of both TNG and Deep Space Nine, including Redemption Part 2, The Next Phase, Emissary, and Move Along Home. He would also direct the first TNG feature film, Star Trek Generations. Denise Crosby would return to Star Trek, reprising her role as Lieutenant Natasha Yar, and because of this episode, she would be able to return again, though of course this time not as Yar, but rather Yar's daughter, Sela. Trisha O'Neill would play Star Trek's first female captain of an Enterprise, Rachel Garrett. O'Neill has had an extensive acting career, appearing in many series and movies, which included 5 appearances in Murder, She Wrote, and even an appearance in the series Babylon 5. O'Neill was a fan of Star Trek long before her role in this episode, and I think it may actually have been to her benefit. For me, she exudes the it factor that makes an Enterprise captain feel like an Enterprise captain. More Trek trivia for you all here is that what some of you may not know is that O'Neill would actually return to play 2 other roles in Star Trek episodes. That of Kurak in the TNG episode Suspicions, and that of Coronis in the Deep Space Nine episode Defiant. Christopher McDonald, who played Lieutenant Richard Castillo, has also had an extensive acting career. However, for me, other than this episode, he is most famous for playing Alan Armstrong in Stargate Universe. But also interesting was the fact he did the voice acting for Harvey Dent in Beware the Batman, the animated series. He had also originally auditioned for the role of William T. Riker. This episode would see many changes made to both the Enterprise and her crew to denote the changes in the timeline. And although this isn't a definitive listing of all the changes, these do include the command deck of the main bridge being raised to the same level as the tactical station, with steps down to the helm and operations area. The chairs on the command deck were removed and replaced with a single command chair for Picard to give his alter ego a sense of authority, and it was mounted on a larger strut. Additional displays with 2 freestanding consoles were added to both sides of the bridge. A mesh grille was added to the underside of the tactical station, while the lighting for the bridge itself was changed from being very bright to a very dull shade of blue. 10 Forward's usually dull, relaxed lighting was changed to a stark brightness, with the wall behind the bar changed to include the Enterprise's registry details. The Enterprise painting, the couch, his works of Shakespeare, his model, and of course his fish Livingston were all removed from Picard's ready room, replaced with status displays and tactical maps. The conference lounge would receive similar changes and be split into 2 separate rooms, while main engineering would have its own lighting darkened similar to that of the main bridge. The ambient noises aboard the Enterprise D would also be increased in volume. Console beeping noises would be similarly increased, and the door swooshing sound would also be increased in volume and subtly changed to sound more like those from the original series. Intra-ship communications were changed to general announcements for the crew, rather than the standard direct hails person to person that all us good fans of the series were used to. The uniforms would also be changed to reflect a far more militaristic Starfleet, with a band collar added instead of the usual wishbone collar of the normal design, and a black cuff was added to the end of each of the sleeves. And of course, a stylized belt was also added for the junior officers and personnel of the ship, with the Starfleet Delta as its clasp, while senior officers' belts removed the over-the-shoulder strap. Stardates were changed to combat date, captain's log to military log, red and yellow alert changed to battle alert followed by condition red or yellow, and the normally quiet and reserved corridors were now jam-packed with crew members, most of whom were running in an obvious rush. A little bit more Trek trivia for you all here is that in the novel Q Squared, written by the great Peter David, Deanna Troy's absence from the Enterprise D in this more militaristic altered timeline was explained due to the Betazoid species being wiped out by the Klingon Empire. Though of course this is not canon, it certainly is an elegant explanation for the Counselor's absence. This episode won an Emmy Award for Outstanding Sound Editing for a Series, and was also nominated for Outstanding Sound Mixing for a Dramatic Series, and also Outstanding Achievement in Musical Composition for a Series for Dennis McCarthy. In fandom, yesterday's Enterprise was overwhelmingly received in a very positive light. Fandom has almost universally declared this episode as one of the best ever created for the Next Generation and Star Trek in general. In fact, in my centuries of travel, I've been very hard-pressed to find any fan that did not enjoy this particular episode. And rewatching it time and time again for this review, I have to say that it absolutely has stood the test of time, being as enjoyable today as when it was originally run back in the day. And I think that alone is a testament to this episode, showing once again what Star Trek is capable of doing, telling an excellent story that can resonate and entertain for all time.
Next time on Star Trek The Next Generation, an Enterprise from the past rips through time and alters the future.
I'm supposed to be dead.
Now Lieutenant Yar lives again to help the crew fight a devastating battle.
This war's not supposed to be happening. You've got to send those people back to correct this.
And one courageous team must die to save the Federation from destruction on Star Trek The Next Generation.
Thank you for watching today's episode of Backtrack. What do you think of the Star Trek The Next Generation episode Yesterday's Enterprise? Do you agree with the majority of fandom that this is one of Star Trek's best episodes ever created? Well, leave your comments in the section below, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel, hitting that little bell icon so you won't miss a single video we release. Want to help the channel restore the timeline? Then consider becoming a channel patron. The link to our Patreon account is in the description below. Thanks again for watching, and remember, let's make sure that history never forgets the name Enterprise.